My name is Dominic Toro, and my family, my mom's family, has lived in Derry her entire life, my entire life, a couple generations now. And I'm lucky enough to work as a math teacher in the area. Thank you. Thank you. Many people don't really see how government affects their day-to-day life. But my time as a teacher has shown me that our government really does affect our life, and their actions and the people who lead it can affect students and families all across the country. Whether it's education funding or the epidemic of gun violence, our government's action, or rather lack of action, have a real impact that is felt by students in our country every day. One really good example of that I wanted to expand on with you guys is that as a teacher, the hardest day I've ever taught, and I've not been a teacher that long, but still I feel like it measures up, is when I was teaching the day after the Parkland school shooting. That was the hardest day to go into work, whether it be facing the Republican teachers in the coffee room and being like, I don't want to have a conversation with you right now. I'm not interested in hearing what you have to say. Or whether it was the awkward silence that preceded my class, where students normally who were chatty were not talking. And I teach high school, which is very strange that they wanted to sit there silently rather than text. So I had to speak with my students about what happened, and in particular what struck me is that I had to explain to my students that this was not normal, that this epidemic of gun violence in schools was not normal. And that really struck me as disturbing, and that something needed to change. And what really hit home was when my students would then, for the weeks after, I had a study hall a couple periods later, and several of them would come from my class to my study hall and not leave. They also had a study. They weren't skipping geometry or anything. But they would stay with me because they knew that they would feel all right if they were with someone. And I just didn't remember feeling that way in high school about anything. So it just really has shown me how much government matters, and that when people say it doesn't matter who the president is, it really does. That's why I'm so excited to be here today welcoming Elizabeth Warren to Derry. As a fellow teacher, I know she understands this well, and it's clear from the many plans that she has released during this campaign that she is well equipped to address these issues. One of the reasons why I love Elizabeth is because she sees too many Americans don't get a fair shake, and that we need to make big structural changes to our government to make sure that our government invests in opportunity for all Americans to succeed. Yeah, clap for that. That's awesome. She understands this because she has spent her entire life studying why the American middle class has been hollowed out. And now she's leading the charge for a fairer and stronger economy, one where anyone who works hard can get a leg ahead in this country. Yeah. So please join me in welcoming Senator Elizabeth Warren here tonight.
It really is a family visit when I get to come across the border over to New Hampshire. So I I just wanted to start by saying I brought my family with me, my 2 guys, my Bruce and Bailey, my sweetie and my other sweetie. So, thank you. I will. I also brought my son Alex and his wife Elise. Stand up, Al. Just so you all know, Alex has been my tech support since 2nd grade. And that's true. And now he runs his own small business, and he's trying out a new job, and that's called Support Your Mother when she runs for President of the United States. So Alex and Elise will be here afterwards. I thought what we'd do today is I tell you a little bit about myself, a little bit about why I'm in this race. We'll take some questions. Jackie's going to come up and we'll do some questions. And then afterwards, anybody want to take a picture? Yes. Well, I have a special treat, and that is 2, count them, 2 photo lines, one for me and one for Bailey. This is not a competition. And yes, you can do both if you want to. So anyway, I hope we have fun. Let me say again how much I appreciate Dominic's doing this. Thank you for the introduction. It's so good. Thank you. Such an important issue you raised. So I was born and raised out in Oklahoma. No Okies here. Okay. That's okay. There aren't that many of us anyway. So I am the baby in the family. I have 3 much older brothers. And I am what used to be called a late in life baby. My mother always just called me the surprise. Now, all 3 of my older brothers, who to this day are referred to as the boys, collectively, they all live back in Oklahoma now. All 3 of my older brothers joined the military. My oldest brother, Don Reed, was career military. He spent about 5.5 years off and on in combat in Vietnam. We were very lucky to get him back home. My second brother, John, was stationed overseas for a little over a year. My 3rd brother, David, trained as a combat medic. And the consequence of this is that we have a rule in our family. And the rule is never choke around David. Because David carries a sharpened pocket knife. He is convinced that he could perform an emergency tracheotomy. He is ready to go. It makes for some very exciting moments at Thanksgiving. Somebody goes, and David's up, and the rest of us are like, whoa, no, I'm good. I'm good, Uncle David. So anyway, I love my 3 brothers. I stay close to them. We talk a lot on the phone. When we were growing up, our daddy had a lot of different jobs. He sold carpeting. He sold fencing. He sold paint. He sold hardware. And by the time I was in middle school, it was just my mama, my daddy, and me. The boys were all gone by that point. And my daddy had a massive heart attack. We thought we were going to lose him. He made it through, but he couldn't work for a long, long time. And I remember when we lost the family station wagon. I was the kid who laid in bed at night after my mother kissed me, and I'd hear her cry in the other room. That's when I'd hear him talk. And that's where I learned words like mortgage and foreclosure. And so one day, I walk into my folks' bedroom, and laid out on the bed is the dress. Now, some of you in here may know the dress. It's the one that only comes out for weddings, funerals, and graduations. And there's my mama, and she's in her slip and her stocking feet, and she's pacing back and forth and crying and saying, "We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house. We will not lose this house. She was 50 years old. She had never worked outside the home, and she was terrified. And finally she looked up, she sees me in the doorway, and she stops and she looks at me, and she looks at that dress, and she looks at me, and she wipes her face, pulls that dress on, puts on her high heels, and walks to the Sears and gets a full-time minimum wage job answering phones. Now, that full-time minimum wage job saved our house, and it saved our family. And for many years, I thought this was the lesson my mother taught me. And that is, no matter how scared you are, no matter how hard it looks, when it comes down to it, you reach down deep, you find what you have to find, you get a hold of it, you pull it up, and you take care of the people you love. Because that's what my mother did. She taught me that lesson as a girl, but years later I came to understand it's millions of people across this country who do this every single day. No matter how scared they are, no matter how hard it looks, when it comes down to it, they reach down deep, they find what they have to find, they pull it up, and they take care of the people they love. That's what Americans do. But here's the thing. It was years after that I came to understand that same story is also a story about government. Because when I was a girl, a full-time minimum wage job in America would support a family of 3. It would pay a mortgage, it would cover the utilities, and it would put food on the table. Today, a full-time minimum wage job in America will not keep a mama and a baby out of poverty. That is wrong, and that is why I am in this fight. And understand, that difference, it's no accident. It's about who government works for. You go back and check the records. When I was a girl and they're trying to figure out where to set the minimum wage, is it time to raise it? The central question asked was, what does it take a family of 3 to survive? What does it take a family of 3 to get a toehold in America's middle class? A family of 3 to just get a chance, a place from which they can build something solid. Today, the question asked in Washington when the minimum wage comes up is, where do we set the minimum wage to maximize the profits of a bunch of multinational corporations? Well, I don't want a government that works for giant multinational corporations. I want one that works for our families. So, like I said, the boys went off and joined the military. That was their dream. Me, I had a different dream. I have known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade. You may laugh. You didn't decide until 3rd grade, 4th grade. I've known what I wanted to be since 2nd grade, and I've never varied from it. I wanted to be a public school teacher. Can we hear it for America's public school teachers? Yes. Yes. I invested early. I used to line my dollies up, and I would teach school. I had a reputation for being tough but fair. Oh, I loved it. But by the time I graduated from high school, my family didn't have the money for a college application, much less to send me off to 4 years for a university degree. So I have a story like a lot of Americans. It's not straightforward, right? Not a straight line. It's got some twists and turns. So here's how the twists and turns go. I got a scholarship to college, and then at 19, fell in love, dropped out, and took a minimum wage job. And I thought that, and by the way, it wasn't to that guy, so somebody else. And I thought that was it. That it was something I'd chosen, I know that, but it wasn't the dream. And then I found it. We'd moved again, and it was a commuter college that cost $50 a semester. And for a price you could pay for on a part-time waitressing job, I finished my 4-year diploma and I became a special needs teacher. I have lived my dream job. I loved it. And the truth is, I would probably still be doing it today. I don't know if I have any special needs teachers. Do I have any? Yeah, there you go. It's a calling, right? It's a calling. But my story has a couple of more twists in it. So here's how my story goes. By the end of my first year in teaching, I was visibly pregnant. And the principal did what principals did in those days. Wished me luck and hired someone else for the job. So, okay, I'm at home, I got a little baby, I can't get a job, what shall I do? I'll go to law school. We've moved again, found a public law school, cost $450 a semester. Baby on hip, I head off to 3 years of law school. It worked. Graduated from law school, visibly pregnant, you will discover a pattern to this, with number 2, that's Alex, there he is, who had the good grace not to come until after the graduation ceremonies. Thank you, son. Last time he was cooperative in his life. No, Alex, good kid. But there I am. I got 2 little babies, law degree, took the bar, practiced law for 45 minutes. Yeah. And then went back to my first love, teaching. I traded little people for big people and taught in law school for nearly all of my grown-up years. Husband number 1, and it's always a clue when you have to number your husbands. That part didn't work out, but somewhere in that process, I found the forever husband number 2, and that's Bruce. So thank you, dear. And a series of golden retrievers, so even better. So here's the deal. I taught in law school, and I don't know, maybe when you grow up without money and scared about it, you pick courses like this, but I taught money. I taught contract law and commercial law, corporate finance, secure transactions, debtor-creditor law, bankruptcy law, every part. If it was a money course, I taught it. But my work was always around one central question, and that is, what's happening to working families in this country? Why is America's middle class being hollowed out? Why is it that families, people who work every bit as hard as my mother worked 2 generations ago, today find the path so much steeper and rockier yet for people of color? Why is that happening in this country? And the answer, it's just like the answer around minimum wage. It's whose side this government is on. So think of it this way. We have a government in Washington that works great, works fabulously for giant drug companies, just not for people trying to get a prescription filled. It works terrifically for people who want to invest in private prisons and private detention centers, just not for the human beings whose lives are destroyed by that profit-making activity. Works great for giant oil companies that want to drill everywhere, just not for the rest of us who see climate change bearing down upon us. When you've got a government that works great for those with money, works great for those that can hire an army of lobbyists and lawyers, works great for those who can make big campaign contributions, and is not working for much of anyone else, that is corruption, pure and simple, and we need to call it out for what it is. Yep. Corruption. And understand this, whatever issue brought you here today, whether it's healthcare, whether it's gun safety, whether it's climate change, if there is a decision to be made in Washington, it has been touched by money. It has been elbowed by money. It has been shaped by money. It has had exceptions built in because of money. In fact, I want to tell you a quick story around this. You go back to the early 1990s, and you start to read, we were starting to get what was happening with climate change. Didn't have it perfect, didn't have all the science, but starting to get it. And here's the deal. Democrats and Republicans were working together. What do we need to do? Do we need to expand the authority of the EPA? Do we need some new regulations? Do we need to make some new scientific investments? What do we need to do? And then along come the Koch brothers. Oh, I see some of you have heard of the Koch brothers. The Koch brothers, the oil companies, some of the big polluters, and they say, in effect, you know, if Congress gets serious about this climate change thing, that's going to hurt our bottom line. That's going to bite into our profits because this is how we make money. So what do? They have an investment decision to make. So what they could do is they could say, well, look at the science. What we're going to do is going to back out of fossil fuels, and we're going to entirely put our fortunes into clean. No, they don't do that. They could say, we're going to invest in carbon capture, how to clean up the air, how to clean up the water. No, they don't do that. You know what they invest in? Politicians. They invest in Washington. They invest in decision makers. And here's the one that just, talk about the turn of the knife. You know, some of the main people they invest in early on is the climate science deniers. The people who come out and say, oh, I have a science degree, and, you know, maybe yes, maybe no. Why do they do that? It's not because they don't understand the science. They do it because they're building an umbrella. And the umbrella is there for politicians to hide under, so politicians can keep taking money from the Koch brothers, from the oil industry, and do absolutely nothing. You want to understand why we face a climate crisis today in America and in this world? It's 25 years of corruption in Washington that has kept us from taking the steps we need to take. So here's the deal. You want to make change in Washington of any kind. You want to make change, we have got to attack the corruption head on. We got to hit it first, and I mean we need to run right up the middle against it. We got to have the courage to call them out. Now here's the good news. I have the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. Not bad, right? It's huge. Here's the bad news. We need the biggest anti-corruption plan since Watergate. But that's the deal. Now, it's a big plan. It's got a lot of moving parts because that's how it works with money. Money goes in so many different ways. It affects so many different things. So I just want to give you a sample of what this plan is. Part 1, end lobbying as we know it. Block the revolving door between Wall Street and Washington. Here's one you may never have thought about. Make the United States Supreme Court follow basic rules of ethics and conflicts of interest. Okay, I really could do these all night long, but I'm just going to do one more. You want to really root out some corruption? Make every single person who runs for federal office put their tax returns online. So that's part 1, attack the corruption head on. Part 2, we got to make some structural change in this economy. Here's a problem we've got. Giant corporations just keep getting bigger, and they wipe out their competition. They wipe out little businesses, startup businesses, but they wipe out medium-sized businesses and good-sized businesses. We're getting enormous concentration in agriculture, in tech, in finance, right? Just one after another after another. And they run over their employees, they run over communities because they've got so much power. Okay, we need to have the courage to enforce our antitrust laws. I'm going to be there. But we also need structural change. You need the kind of change in the system that keeps pushing back against that power. That means we need more power in the hands of workers, make it easier to join a union, and give unions more power when they negotiate. That'll work. So that's one way that we can build some structural change into the economy. Here's another. It's time to pass a wealth tax. Okay, so here's how this one's going to work. It's a 2-cent tax on any fortune above $50 million. Okay, so your first 50 million free and clear. I see some people saying, phew. Okay. First 50 million free and clear, but your 50 millionth and first dollar, you got to pitch in 2 cents. And 2 cents on every dollar after that. And it's a straight wealth tax, not an income tax. By the way, anybody in here own a home? Yeah, well, you've been paying a wealth tax for a very long time. It's just called a property tax. And all I'm saying is, for the super duper rich, real estate is not the only thing they own that is really valuable. So let's include your stock portfolio, the diamonds, the Rembrandt, and the yachts. Okay, just kind of scoop all that in. 2 cents, that's all we want. And understand this, this isn't in order to be punitive. No, it's not to say we're mad at you for building a great fortune. No. Look, you had a great idea. You got out there and worked your fanny off, or you inherited well. But either way, a great fortune built in America, I guarantee you this. You built it in part using workers all of us help pay to educate. You built it in part getting your goods to market on roads and bridges all of us help pay to build. You built it in part protected by police and firefighters all of us help pay the salaries for. And we are totally glad to do that, happy to do it. We understand that investments in education and infrastructure help create opportunities. All we're saying is if you make it really big, super duper big, top 0.1%, pitch in 2 cents so everybody else gets a chance to make it in this country. Yep. So what can we do with 2 cents? Oh, here it is, 2 cents. And we can pay for universal child care for every baby in this country age 0 to 5. See, we got one back there. He's sold, I can tell. Good. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old and 4-year-old in this country. Raise the wages of every child care worker and preschool teacher in this country to a professional level. And that's not all. That same 2 cents will cover all of that for our babies and will let us do tuition-free technical school, community college, and 4-year college for any kid who wants to get an education. Yep. Plus, it will help us level the playing field and give us $50 billion to be able to put into historically black colleges and universities. Give tomorrow's leaders a chance. All of that, plus we can cancel student loan debt for 95% of the kids who've got it. Yeah. We can do all of that. Okay, so that's part 2. Part 1, we're going to attack the corruption so we can do the things we need to do. Part 2, we're just going to make some structural changes in this economy. Part 3, we need to protect our democracy. Yeah. It's under threat like never before. I want to dream big. A constitutional amendment to protect the right of every American citizen to vote and to get that vote counted. Yep. I have a plan to make our voting system secure from foreign hackers. We need a system as secure as Fort Knox. A plan to roll back every racist voter suppression law that's been passed in this country. Yep. Plan to end political gerrymandering. And just one more. Overturn Citizens United. Democracy is not for sale. So there it is, just 3 things. Come on, attack the corruption head on, get some structural change in the economy, and protect our democracy. Now those might sound like 3 very different things, but the truth is they all wind into the same point. And for me, it's all about opportunity. Opportunity, and opportunity's felt a lot of different ways, I know that. You know, I was a special needs teacher. Opportunity may mean a chance to live independently. Opportunity, getting the best possible education, not just for some of our kids, but all of our kids. Opportunity to get a good job. Opportunity to be able to start a small business without having to worry about the student loan debt that you can't manage. Opportunity to buy a home. Opportunity to start a family. Opportunity to build a real future. That's what pulled me in to politics. It's about opportunity. You know, my daddy, he ended up as a janitor. But his baby daughter got the opportunity. The opportunity to become a public school teacher, the opportunity to become a college professor, the opportunity to become a United States Senator, and the opportunity to become a candidate for President of the United States of America. Dream big, fight hard, let's win.
Is it on? It is.
Yeah, okay, Jackie's ready.
All right.
We're gonna do some Q&A.
All right, so when you
Now,
came in...
I got them warmed up for you here, Jackie.
I appreciate it very much. All right, so when you came in today, if you wanted to ask a question, you filled out a little raffle ticket. So this basket that I have here has them. I'm gonna call 3 numbers at a time, and then you're gonna come line up. People will have microphones, I believe.
Okay.
And you can ask your
You're doing
question.
it, Jackie.
All right. So here goes the first 3 numbers. All right. Last 3 numbers, 587.
587. Do we have a 587? Come on, 587. We're rooting for you here. Last 3 numbers. Just look at the last 3 numbers
the last
on
3
your
numbers.
ticket.
The first 4 are the same.
Oh, bingo!
All right, next one, 604.
We're going to get a couple more up so we can do them all at
604.
once. What was it again?
604.
604. Or as a math teacher would say, 604, right? Okay. 604, do we have somebody? Oh, no? No. Okay, 604. 604 going once.
I'll do another one. Oh, 601.
Whoa! 604, fabulous. Okay, come on over.
All right,
Okay.
and third one, 601.
Oh, that should be nearby. Well, then you're not 604. If you don't have a number, I'm sure you're not 604. Sorry. Okay, do we have
All right, we'll try 601.
We're just trying to give everybody a chance here. 601. You got
Opportunity.
it. Fabulous. Okay, then let's try one
All
more.
right, third one, 597.
597. Have we got a 59? There you go. Fabulous.
Hey,
Okay.
good job.
Jackie,
We're getting
nice
it.
job. Okay. That gets us started. Okay. Who's first?
All right, hi, my name is Sarah Brooks.
Hi, Sarah.
My question is, how do you plan to maintain a healthy rivalry with your fellow Democratic candidates while strengthening the party as a whole going into 2020?
Oh, what a good question. So let me start by saying I do not attack my fellow Democrats. And what I try to do whenever I'm asked is I try to talk about my vision and talk about the positive vision of what we can do come 2020. So when people ask me about, do I want to comment on this one or that one, I say, let me just tell you why I'm in this race. Because I can tell you why I'm in this race. This country's been working long enough for a thinner and thinner slice at the top. We got a chance in 2020 to take that back and to make this country work for everyone else. And that's what I'm going to keep talking about every chance I get. Let me say one other thing, though, because I think you asked a really good question. I just want to do a related question if I can, because this is New Hampshire. And you all are going to have a lot to do with picking the next president and what happens to this country. Not just for the next 4 years or 8 years, but I mean for generations to come. You get to see all of the folks who are running, they come, they talk to you, and you get to ask the candidates, not just what are your long-term ideas and goals, it's what are you doing right now? Because I believe that the biggest part of running for president, of being president, is knowing what your values are and being willing to live your values every single day. So we all gave a big woo-hoo over Citizens United. I just want to remind you, you have the chance here in New Hampshire to ask every candidate, where's your money coming from? How many times have you gone behind closed doors and said who knows what to corporate executives, to millionaires, to billionaires? I just want you all to know this. When I made the decision to run for president, I knew exactly why I was running and what I was going to get out there and fight for. But I also knew how I was running. And I was going to run grassroots, $5 and $10 at a time, and build a movement all across this country. And that's what we've been doing. By the way, we just got our millionth contribution the other day. But I have spent exactly 0 time behind closed doors trying to get money from rich people and listening to their concerns. I have spent 0 time calling rich people and asking them about what matters to them and hoping that they will give me money. If you think that's the right way to run a campaign, if you haven't already done it, I hope you'll go to ElizabethWarren.com and pitch in $5 or volunteer an hour. That's how we're going to take back our democracy. So I think it matters to this question. Good. Thank you. Okay.
Hi, Senator Warren. My name is Alexandra Lukow.
Hi, Alexandra.
Hi. My question for you is, with the recent laws that were passed by states banning abortion at or around 6 weeks, how do you plan to protect a woman's right to choice, and in tandem with that, separation of church and state?
Excellent. All right. Good question, Alexandra. So let's just for a minute talk about what happens if Roe versus Wade is overturned. I lived in an America in which abortions were illegal, and women still got abortions. It wasn't as safe. Some came out okay, some didn't. But understand this, in America where some states effectively bar access to abortion or completely bar access to abortion, rich women will do just fine. It's poor women who won't have access. It's 14-year-old girls who've been molested by somebody in their family who won't have access. It's mamas who are working 3 jobs right now and can't take off 2 days to go out of state and come back. Yeah. So what this is about how we make sure that there's some basic fairness in this country. I understand there are very different views about abortion. I do. But this is a question about what the government's role is. You want to make a decision? Make your decision. Make your decision with your priest or your rabbi. Make your decision with your family or your friends. Make your decision with your significant other. But the government should not be making the decision for you. So, what do? We have a Supreme Court that is not mainstream law anymore. And let's face it, for 47 years, states, activists in states have been hacking away at Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade used to be this big and now it's this big, right, as they hack away. But here's the thing. We live in a democracy. About 3 out of every 4 people in America wants to see Roe versus Wade upheld. So my view on this is, sure, I'll keep pushing on the courts. I'll fight it alongside everyone else. But we also need to go back to Congress. When 3 out of 4 Americans want to see Roe versus Wade protected, it is now time to introduce that bill in the House and the Senate and get out there and fight for it. Thank you. That'll work.
Hi, my name is Ari Huff, and
Hi, Art.
Nice to meet you. I'm concerned about Social Security. According to the Congressional Budget Office, absent any reforms, by 2035, we're looking at that trust being exhausted. So as president, I'm just curious to hear what your solutions are for the national debt and particularly Social Security.
Good. So thanks for the question. Let's talk a little bit about Social Security. Here's the bottom line on Social Security. As you all know, it started out back in the 1930s. And between the 1930s and the 1980s, there were a lot of changes in this country. People lived longer, women went to work, the number of industries that were covered expanded, a lot of changes. And so multiple times, many, many dozens of times, Congress just came in and readjusted. So sometimes they upped the taxes a little bit, sometimes they changed how the payout is called the curve on how much you put in and how much you get out. You just keep adjusting it. So there's always plenty of money in it, it's always secure, and it's protecting the people who depend most on it. That stopped in the late 1980s when the Republicans just said, no, it's an entitlement program and we're not going to, their words, expand it. And of course, taxes were a dirty word. And so what happened is every year that went by, we took a little bite out of the surplus that had been there, and people lived a little longer, and more people were covered by Social Security, and that's another bite and another bite and another bite. So right now, we see ourselves in a position where, depending on whose numbers you take a look at, 15 years down the road, 20 years down the road, we're going to hit a cliff where we just run out of that money. Now, it doesn't mean it goes to zero. It means if you did nothing else, it would drop by about 25%. And then Social Security benefits would continue to go forward at about 75% of their current rate on into the future forever, because that one works. We could have made little adjustments as we went along. Every year that goes by that we don't make these adjustments, the adjustments have to get bigger. So let me just start. We have to pull in more revenue, and that means we need to gradually lift the cap on how much people pay into Social Security. People with a lot of money are going to have to pay more. That's going to be a part of it. So we got to bring in more revenue, but I'm not going to stop there. And that is, we also have to acknowledge we are facing a retirement crisis in this country. You know, the whole idea had been it would be Social Security, it would be all those private pensions. Somebody's heard of those, right? That the companies were going to provide. Those have gone away. And individual savings. And for tens of millions of seniors, there is no more individual savings. Indeed, I talk to people across this country whose retirement plan is work until I die. That is not a retirement plan. So let's just do this one with our basic values. First, after a lifetime of hard work, people are entitled to retire with dignity. That means make the revenue adjustments so that Social Security is secure, not just for my generation, not just for Alex's, but for the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Everyone should be able to count on this going forward. The second thing we need to do is Social Security is there as the basic safety net. And for the roughly third of seniors for whom that's all they've got, we need to expand Social Security, change that curve, so the people who are at the bottom are getting more money and can actually support themselves. So that's where I am on Social Security. You bet. It's a good question. It's a good one. Did we do all three? Okay, we did three. I tell you what, it's hot. Are we good? You want to?
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Give me the hook here?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, I want to say something at the end. Okay.
All right, so why don't we give the senator another round of applause and give yourselves a round of applause for handling this heat.
No. Let me say something. You're going to tell them about where to go?
Yes,
Okay.
for the photo line. Yes.
Okay, she's going to point where the photo lines are going to be.
Yes.
Right? When we get through. But I want to say something first. And that is, again, how grateful I am that you would come in here. It's hotter in here than it is outside. It is a beautiful Saturday afternoon. There are 100 million things you could be doing. But you came in here because you understand. This is because this is a perilous time for our country. And I am grateful to you for how seriously you take this. You know, I get teased about having a lot of plans, a lot of details, a lot of pieces, how they're all paid for and explain all the parts. I get teased about that. And in fact, I get advice. And I get advice sometimes from fellow senators. Don't make it so complicated. People don't care about policy. They don't care about plans. Just back up, smile more. Here's the thing. When people start down that line, they say, this is too hard. What you're trying to do is too hard. You're trying to make too many changes. You're trying to take on big ag and big finance and big tech. You're trying to take on a corrupt system. You're trying to make a lot of change. Don't do it. Quit now. It's too hard. Go for something small. I stopped to think, what do you think they said to the abolitionists? Right? Quit now. Too hard. America's not going to make those changes. What do you think they said to the suffragettes? Quit now. Too hard. What did they say to the early union organizers? Quit now. Too hard. What did they say to the foot soldiers in the civil rights movement? Quit now. It's just too hard. What did they say to the LGBTQ activists a decade ago? Too hard. Quit now. But here's the thing. They didn't quit. They didn't give up. They got organized. They built a movement. They persisted. And they changed the course of American history. This is our moment in American history. This is the time for us to get organized, to build a movement, to persist, and to change the direction of American history. That's where we're headed. Dream big.